Here's a video of her crying. This was posted on March 18th, less than a month after she allegedly killed her parents, with the caption, quote, "Please send prayers for healing and a break from everything."
She posted this barely 2 weeks after her mom and stepdad were found shot to death in their bed. This is 17-year-old Sarah Grace Patrick crying on TikTok, begging strangers for sympathy, while secretly becoming the star of a murder she allegedly orchestrated herself. She called 911, she gave a eulogy, she even posted a Mother's Day tribute to the woman she's accused of killing. But this story goes way deeper than performative grief, because in the next few minutes, you're going to hear the plot twists police never revealed to the public, and how they built a murder case around the girl who kept asking, "Why me?" From the fake tears to a funeral speech that raised red flags, to a moment so disturbing we still don't know what it meant. Let's just say you'll never look at influencer grief the same way again. Please send prayers for healing and a break from everything, Sarah Grace wrote on TikTok as a caption to this video on March 18th. Her followers grew and the comment section filled with hearts and prayers. Everyone was saying they couldn't even imagine what she was going through. To see your parents taken away so brutally without a chance to say goodbye. On February 20th, 2025, Sarah's mom, Kristen, and her husband, James Brock, were found shot to death in their bed. But it wasn't Sarah who found them. It was her 5-year-old sister. The little girl walked into the master bedroom to wake her parents up and saw their bodies in a way that no child should ever see them. She ran, screaming and crying to get help. But help in this case meant her 16-year-old half-sister, the same girl who would later call 911 and then go right back to curating her social media presence like she was starring in her own Netflix limited series. That's how it all started. A child stumbling into a horror scene and a teenager who immediately began acting like the story was about her. Sarah posted crying selfies and Mother's Day tributes to Kristen, calling her her best friend. "This can't be real. On the way to my parents' funeral," she'd write. Other times, she'd just despair. She confessed to her audience she felt unable to cope without her mom. She posted healing journey videos about trauma and sleepless nights. She used her parents' death to rack up views, reach out to true crime influencers, and paint herself as a victim of unspeakable tragedy. Here's this heartbreaking caption over a TikTok reel of her parents. "They don't know it, but a year from now, me and my 5-year-old sister would find them wrongfully shot dead in our home and won't get to watch me graduate high school, see me walk down the aisle, and couldn't even say goodbye." But while her TikTok was exploding with compassion, the Carroll County Police in Georgia were looking at Sarah with different eyes. You see, there was no intruder on the night of the attack. The first responders noted no signs of forced entry and no missing items either. And soon investigators would zero in on the one person who had access, motive, and control of the narrative: Sarah. Still, she played the grieving daughter to perfection. At the funeral, she stood up before a crowd of people, sobbing for the Brocks, and delivered a calm, practiced speech.
There's nothing we can do to bring them back. We still have control over how we treat people.
We'll delve into this eulogy later because it would turn out to hold the key to this entire case. For now, the authorities were watching and collecting. Not just Sarah's eulogy speech, but her phone data, social media behavior, and everyday behavior as people in her life would remember it. Every caption was a contradiction, and every word she said in public would eventually be played back in private under the harsh lights of an interrogation room. Because here's the twist you don't want to miss. Sarah was doing much more than faking grief. And what comes next will shatter the last excuses anyone could make for her.
We have reason to believe that it happened that way. I mean, through evidence and through forensic interviews, we believe that the child located them deceased that morning.
The morning of February 20th began in absolute horror. According to police, it was 5-year-old Jay, not her teenage sister, who found Kristen and James Brock shot to death in their bed. And yet it wasn't Jay who called 911, it was Sarah, which in itself was the first of many red flags. The house wasn't large. In fact, investigators described it as a very small home in a quiet rural area with no ambient traffic.
It wasn't a mansion where this happened.
This expert noted something else from his own personal perspective.
I have a, one that's almost 4, and it just seemed like a lot of steps for someone who's 5 to go through to then alert the teenager.
Yeah, anyone who has small kids around knows it takes a lot of effort and attention for a kindergarten kid to process a scene like that. How was Jay able to do all that while Sarah claimed she never even heard the gunshots in her, quote, very small house? According to Sarah's version of events, she was watching TV late into the night, then went to bed around midnight, and she told police she heard the faint beeping of her stepdad's LVAD heart pump alarm, but no gunshots. If you ask experts, that just cannot be the case. Plus, there were no signs of forced entry, like kicked doors or broken windows, no blood trail out. Kristen and James were found in their bed, still in their pajamas, executed in their sleep. The safest place in the world turned into a grave. And not for a robbery either. There were no objects missing from the home, which meant one of two things. Either this was an inside job, or someone very close to the family knew exactly how to get in, commit 2 murders, and vanish without a trace. But Sarah didn't act like someone worried about an intruder. She acted like someone performing. And if you think that's a stretch, wait until we show you what she did after that 911 call. Because while the cops were scrambling to rule out suspects, Sarah was already shaping the narrative online. And what she did next, that's where the cover story starts to crumble. Here's where investigators noted their biggest red flag yet.
Although there's nothing we can do to bring them back, we still have control over how we treat people.
Sarah Grace Patrick stood at the front of the church, in front of family, police, and an entire community shattered by grief, as she delivered what sounded like a powerful message. At first, she said things like, "I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this, and I'm really happy to get to do this." But her behavior contradicted her statements. Behavioral analyst Scott Roos, who's trained with the FBI and U.S. military intelligence, dissected Sarah's eulogy and found it chillingly rehearsed.
We're seeing things that she thinks we want to see. She's acting the way she thinks she should act. This is not the way someone who is grieving like that acts in a normal situation like this. Simply
put, this girl was enjoying the attention so much it was visible.
She's in nirvana for this personality type. She's on stage, just look at me, look, I'm feeling, grief, and you're feeling sorry for me. It's all performative.
Sarah's tone stayed steady. Her face didn't twitch. She took no deep breaths, no pauses to cry, no trembling voice.
We're not seeing upheavals of emotion. We're not seeing those gasps of breath like when a little child is crying and they take those really quick deep breaths. That happens to adults too.
It was a script, possibly even AI generated, according to Roos, who noted her odd phrasing, like beginning a thank you section with, "and lastly."
And lastly, I'm not taking people for granted. I want to thank my family.
And remember that control statement she made? "We still have control over how we treat people," she said. To investigators, that line didn't sound reflective, it sounded loaded. What did how we treat people have to do with 2 people being shot to death in their sleep? Why was she suddenly moralizing about kindness at a double murder funeral? That word, control, would haunt investigators later. But the most disturbing part, she ended her speech with 2 words nobody could explain: "I'm sorry." Carroll County Director of Communications, Ashley Husley, had this to say about it.
Now, she may have been sorry because she was showing emotion, possibly throughout that eulogy, if you want to call it that. But she also could have said it meaning something deeper. We just may never know exactly what she meant by that, but it did raise my eyebrows.
Was she apologizing for crying, or was it guilt leaking through the cracks? Because what came next did not help her case. The mascara tears, the "why me" captions, the beachside content, and moody slow motion tributes, all posted within weeks of her mother and stepfather being brutally shot in their bed. At first, these TikToks looked like raw, painful grief. But when Sarah Grace Patrick was arrested and charged with their murders, the world saw something different. They saw a girl documenting a crime scene she allegedly created and making herself the center of it all.
She's in her wheelhouse. She's doing what she loves. She's doing what she's good at. She's good at this. So she's peaking here when it comes to the nirvana state for the narcissist.
Yeah, you heard right. Criminal experts are not shying away from calling her a narcissist.
In light of the accusation against her, It makes her look nefarious, self-centered, and attention-seeking.
Sarah wasn't falling apart. She was carefully staging her own grief, editing captions, choosing angles, and uploading videos that looked like suffering. And the performance didn't end with the posts. Sarah also allegedly reached out to true crime TikTokers, pushing them to cover the murder case and help her solve it before she was arrested. Influencer Janice from @allegedly_reportedly received a DM in June. Search up Brock case. When asked for more context, the user claiming to be Sarah responded, "They're my parents. Someone came in and shot my parents brutally, leaving them for me and my little sister to wake up to." But the most disturbing message came shortly after. News coverage of this case would be a really big hit. She wasn't asking for justice, she was pitching content. Janice herself said it felt like she was digitally reliving the crime. Here's how this gets even more sickening. This wasn't just a narcissist hungry for sympathy. This was someone betting the case wouldn't be solved. Someone cocky enough to insert herself into the investigation as if she were the victim. She's even commented on Janice's TikToks, replying to users speculating about the killer's familiarity with the house. Most definitely was, since they knew the house. The irony? She's describing herself. Digital analyst Dr. Todd Grande said it best in his breakdown.
She may have just ushered in a new and terrifying motive for one of the most unnatural types of murder. Does society now have to worry about pathological attention-seeking?
You guys, it is terrifying if a teen can unalive her family just to grow her TikTok base. Thankfully, in this case, it wouldn't last forever. Every TikTok she posted and every manipulative comment she left ended up becoming part of the case against her. Because while Sarah was building a grieving persona online, investigators were building a murder file offline. Sarah Grace Patrick was born in 2008 and lived in Carrollton, Georgia, a quiet southern town about an hour from Atlanta. She split her time between her mother, Kristen Brock, and her biological father, who remained involved in her life and ultimately drove her to the sheriff's office when police told her she was going to be arrested. She was 16 years old when her mother and stepfather were found shot to death, 17 when she was charged. There's no known history of abuse, no signs of trauma or instability. Kristen wasn't strict, James wasn't dangerous. If anything, he was frail, recovering from heart surgery and reliant on an LVAD machine just to stay alive. According to James's niece, Kristen Dada, the couple didn't even own a gun.
They did not own a gun. If there was a gun in that house, that would be shocking to me.
So what was Sarah running from? By all accounts, she had options. She was about to graduate from high school, she had a job, a boyfriend, a secure future, and yet she's the only suspect in this awful story. But no one who knew her suspected a thing. She seemed normal, sweet even.
Every time I was around her, she was very sweet. She was very, open to talk to whoever was around.
And I know what you guys are thinking. Mental illness is not always visible, but shockingly enough, there's no confirmed mental illness either. Her grandfather, Dennis Nolan, who staunchly defends her, told reporters she had never been hospitalized or medicated. He also doubled down on the fact that Sarah and her mom had no history of fights.
She and her mother were very close, and they were doing great at that time. They had a great relationship.
But Sarah's grandpa had no other argument when the reporter asked how he knew she was innocent. He kept circling back to this.
She's my granddaughter. I have to stand behind her.
But as heartbreaking as it is, just because someone's your blood relative doesn't mean they can't be a monster. And here's how Kristen proved that point. You see, someone did suspect Sarah of a dark mind. It was her only non-blood relative, her stepdad, James.
Jamie has said multiple times that you don't know the real Sarah.
Sarah's mom would always defend her, something along the lines of, teenage girls in this TikTok era are not easy to raise, but James insisted.
But he said multiple times, she's not the sweet Sarah that you guys see. She's not who she puts online. You don't know the real her.
How tragic is it that he was right and no one believed him? Or perhaps no one wanted to. And while her younger sister Jay had to live with the memory of discovering their parents' bodies, Sarah continued to reach out to the family she allegedly shattered.
She continued to call and text my mom for 5 months.
telling her she was sorry for losing her brother, that she missed him, that she wanted to help, but it was all fake. It's not just the murder that haunts people, it's the manipulation that followed. And if you're still wondering whether Sarah acted alone, what happens next will blow the case wide open. Because we're about to look at the timeline and what police believe she was doing in the days leading up to the murders. Texts, patterns, and one detail so bizarre it could change everything.
Today, we can confirm that an arrest has been made in the case. Kristen Brock's 17-year-old daughter, Sarah Grace Patrick, has been taken into custody and charged with 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of aggravated assault.
When police finally arrested Sarah 5 months after her parents were gunned down in their bed, they made one thing clear: they were not done.
We are interviewing potential suspects and anyone that we feel may have information.
That's right, potential suspects, because according to the Carroll County Sheriff's Office, Sarah may not have acted alone. Investigators have hinted multiple people being involved, either during the murders or in covering them up afterwards. Sheriff spokesperson Ashley Husley confirmed they're actively exploring whether someone helped, knew, or enabled Sarah in any way.
It's very possible that others are involved, whether they had knowledge or whether they assisted.
It's a chilling thought that someone else knew this was coming and said nothing, or worse, played a part. But while the public is still trying to wrap their heads around Sarah's alleged role, law enforcement says they've already seen enough to charge her with her parents' murder. And the phrase they keep repeating?
Law enforcement says there is a mountain of evidence that makes the case
a mountain of evidence. Not a theory or a hunch, but a strong case built across 5 months of quiet surveillance, digital forensics, and interviews that police say will hold up in court. But here's the problem. We haven't seen the mountain yet. They won't say if they have the gun, they won't confirm a motive, they won't even say if Sarah confessed. All we know is that something, or many things, in Sarah's digital footprint, text history, or physical evidence link her to the murders. It's the silence that makes this so loud. Her grandfather, Dennis Nolan, insists Sarah's being railroaded.
I just can't imagine her doing such a horrific thing, especially to her mother.
He believes the arrest was rushed and a result of public pressure. But law enforcement says the opposite, that they took 5 months because they refused to rush it. So what's next? Right now, Sarah sits in jail awaiting trial. She's reportedly retained a public defender, and her side is preparing to fight. But behind the scenes, investigators are still following leads. They've made it clear the case isn't closed. Interviews are ongoing. More people could be charged. But here's what Dennis Nolan, Sarah's own grandfather, revealed in a quiet moment of defense that turned everything sideways.
You know, he was a convicted felon, and he I think at one time was part of a motorcycle gang.
That's right. According to Dennis, Kristen's husband, James, has a dark past involving a bike gang affiliation. Meanwhile, he could have led a life that made him enemies long before Sarah picked up a gun.
Do you think James's past might be something to look into?
I reflected that to the detectives early on.
It's a bizarre twist, one the public wasn't expecting, and law enforcement hasn't confirmed whether it's relevant or even true. So why bring it up? Why, in a moment when your granddaughter is facing life in prison, would you plant that seed? Was Dennis grasping at straws to protect her even if it meant smearing a dead man? Or does he know something that we don't? Because if someone else wanted James Brock dead for something he did long ago, then Sarah might not have been the only one with a motive. And that mountain of evidence police keep talking about, we might not be standing at the peak just yet. The timeline is still missing pieces. The gun has never been found, and the case is still wide open. Sarah's arrest wasn't the end. It was just the first crack in something much darker.